What's going on, everyone? Welcome once again to the Bass, Kayak, and Beers podcast. As always, it's your host, Armando. Got a great episode. I know I keep saying that, but it's always true. I got Caleb Helbig, winner of the TKC Texas Kayak Championship. He's joining me today. For those out of Texas that are not familiar with this tournament, this is a brand new tournament run by Chris Morales, Andrew Jacobson, and Joseph Anderson. It's the inaugural season of the TKC. It is a higher payout, so higher stakes, and it is not your typical just kind of like regional small club tournament trail. This trail is full of Texas hammers. We got Guillermo Gonzalez fishing in this tournament. We got Bryan Howell, another one of the ones that's sitting at a good position to take over the Hobie B.O.S Angler of the Year, depending how he does in Lake Eufaula. I think both Guillermo and Bryan Howell are in the top 5. You also got Matthew Scotch fishing in this tournament. Catherine Fields has come down to fish in this tournament. Rolando Nandin, congratulations to Rolando Nandin, won Angler of the Year for the TKC. Again, it is a tournament that is not big, but is stocked full of great talent, and winning the classic, the 2-day tournament at Lake Welsh like Caleb Helbig did, it is a big deal, and I wanted to bring Caleb Helbig here on the show to talk about it. He also came in third on the Hobie B.O.S at Sam Rayburn, another great tournament on conditions that we're not always familiar with. I mean, Sam Rayburn was extremely flooded for that tournament, so it kind of really changed the landscape of that tournament, and Caleb Helbig did a great job. So big congrats to him. He's on our show. We're going to be talking about that win and that third place at the Hobie B.O.S, and more importantly, that win at the TKC 2-day tournament at Lake Welsh. Before I get into that, kind of wanted to touch on something. On my latest post promoting my previous episode, as you know, the title of my podcast is Bass, Kayak, and Beers. It runs on the Paddle and Fin Network. On the social media side, I have my own Instagram account. We do promos on my Instagram account, Bass, Kayak, and Beers. Feel free to follow it on Facebook and Instagram, and also on the Paddle and Fin side. Somebody was triggered by the title of my podcast, thought that I was promoting drinking beer while on the water. I guess that was his argument, and threatened to unfollow us. I'm not here to create division. I've said it a long time ago. I don't want to bring attention negative sides. I don't want to create divide. I'm not going to go, spill venom on anybody or get into arguments. I respect this gentleman's opinion. I do want to clarify for those of you that are new to the podcast, I do not promote drinking on the water. And maybe I'm going to make it a point to say that either in the intro or outro. I am not here promoting for anybody to go out there and get drunk while kayak fishing. The title of the podcast is Bass, Kayak, and Beers because, as you heard it before on this podcast, we just sit down, crack a beer open, and have a great conversation with either great tournament anglers, both guys and girls, talking about, kind of campfire stories. How did the tournament go? How did it play out? Sometimes we do product reviews. If it's okay with the guys from the final cast, sometimes we will do a little tournament review. If it's okay with the guys from the reel down, we do a little bit about everything. We also got social media content creators, and it's just about cracking open a beer and having a good conversation. That is all it is. I'm not promoting anybody to get drunk. If you notice, I don't always start off my episodes with cracking the beer open. I do when it's appropriate. There are times where I may have a guest that is recovering from alcohol addiction, and usually those type of details come up in the pre-recording. When that does come about, I never open a beer out of respect for my guest. When I'm having interviews, just like I did with Jackson Orr last year and with Ewan Minor this year, who are both underage, as far as drinking is concerned, legal drinking age, I don't crack open a beer. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I just, out of respect for the laws and for the people that have made the decision not to consume alcohol, which I do respect and I do support, by the way. So that's it. Other than that, big shout out to my sponsor. If you're watching on YouTube, Douglas Rods. They made some wonderful hoodies. They were kind enough to have my logo, if you see on my sleeve, Bass Kayak and Beers. Again, if you're watching on social media, Facebook or YouTube channel, Paddle and Fin, go check out the hoodie. Go to douglasoutdoors.com. You can check out their award-winning fly fishing rods, LRS, bait casting and spinning rods, X Matrix, bait casting and spinning rods, and they have great gear. You know, hoodies. They have a new gator that comes with like a turtleneck built into the hoodie. They have sun shirts, all-in-one sun shirts at a very affordable price and very, very high quality. So not just great rods, they also have great gear. Go check them out, especially if you're preparing for cold weather, winter. Check out the hoodies. Love the hoodies. Anyways, that's it. We're going to go to a quick commercial, and then we'll bring Caleb Helbig back in, and we'll have a great time. So thank you for tuning in. Enjoy. Mr. Caleb Higby, how are you doing today?
Doing good, doing good. How about yourself?
Pretty good, man. That was a shaky intro. We had to start it, pause, and start recording. So I apologize about that. As soon as I started recording, I forgot, wait a minute, how do I pronounce Caleb's last name? So you had to do a little restart there. But man, first of all, Caleb, congratulations on your big win. TKC, the final, the classic at Welsh Lake. How are you feeling about that win, man?
Oh, it was amazing. It was a great weekend. Caught a lot of good fish, and being able to compete with the level of anglers like you were saying at the intro. I mean, just some of the best in Texas were out there, and it was good hanging out with them, fishing with them, and anytime you can put the pieces together on game day like that in a tournament of that size, it was awesome.
You and I kind of both started at the same time. We were talking about the pre-recording. We both started getting our feet wet in the tournament last year around May, and both for you and me. And then this year we're kind of like getting, trying to fish every tournament that we can, whether it's a national event or a local event. So the progression when you start looking at these tournaments, going up against guys with such a pedigree and I mean, it is a daunting task when you're going up against guys like with their pedigree and their resume on the water. And that's one of the reasons why I got into TKC. Like to me, I was like, well, I don't think I'm at that level yet, but in order to raise my level, I need to compete against higher level competition. That's what's gonna make you a better angler, competing against the best of the best, even if you're not gonna have the success that you like to hope instantly. It's a great experience to be able to fish with some of these great anglers. How was it for you when you got to Lake Welch, like day one? Let's start with day one. How was day one for you?
So my day one started. I wanted to have. I think we were allowed to pre-fish 2 days, Thursday and Friday. I couldn't get off work Thursday, so I woke up at about. Well, I had my alarm set for midnight Thursday night. Friday morning, didn't get out of bed till about 1 a.m. Drove up to Welsh, got there by morning time, so I was able to get a full day of pre-fish. I think I launched at daylight, and then was probably off the water by 3 or so, around when the normal window for the tourney was going to be. So that was my start to it.
And how was day one for you? What before we go into day one, what did you find on the pre-fishing? Like you did your pre-fishing Friday, and how do you felt going into day one? Like did you feel like you accomplished what you wanted to do on day one? I mean
I,
on the pre-fishing?
I really think I did. Pre-fishing is one of those things that I'm, I guess, trying to kind of get better at using
Yeah.
my time wisely because don't always have time on some tournaments. Some tournaments I have more time, so trying to use that more effectively. In the morning, I put together some patterns. I was finding smaller fish and some bunch of bites, real shallow, kind of anywhere there was grass or timber. I was just getting a ton of bites. I caught a few small fish, and then just started shaking fish off. Um, Kind of moved out and started exploring some deeper water where I found what actually would go on to win me the tournament with some deeper patterns. First spot I got out deep, pulled it in. It was about a 20-inch fish, and at that point I cast it around a few more times, got bites, let the fish. I didn't set the hook on it, just let it go, and from there I pretty much just went and kind of locked myself into a portion of the lake where I just started covering water, exploring water, marking stuff on my graph to be able to go back to the next day. So at least had a good feel of how the lake was set up in case where I had found fish pre-fishing. I didn't, if there wasn't fish there the next day, I'd at least have a general idea of what some of the lake looked like.
This was, we were talking about on the pre-recording. You've never fished that lake before, so really you only had that one day, a few hours to just kind of get the landscape of it and try to find something. What baits were you throwing deep when you said you found that deep pattern? What pattern was that?
So I was actually I like to throw a Texas rig. It's to me it's a very versatile. I'll put a little crawl on it, or I'll put a trip worm or a curly tail worm, just depending on what the situation was. So I was finding offshore structure. There was a bunch of sticks, stumps, places where I guess the treetops had fallen over, creating brush piles out there, and so I was targeting structure when I went out deep. There were some areas where grass was probably in that. I mean, all the way up to the bank, out to like 4 to 5 foot, and so I would work those shallow, and a lot of sticky areas shallow. But when I went deep, that's what I was targeting, was a deep, pretty much timber.
Nice. How, when you say deep, how deep were you finding it?
It was about 10 to 15, and really, I mean, that may not be deep to some people, but it was about 10 to 15 foot. And the part of the lake I was in, that was as deep as it got. The farther you got down to the dam, I think it got quite a bit deeper, but 10 to 15 foot was where I found the fish that won the tournament for me. That and the shallow in the early morning.
Did you had to change your strategy? You had to change either your strategy or the place where you're fishing from day one to day two, or did that hold up for both days?
It held up good for the first day. There was I think Friday, whenever we pre-fished, we had just had some cooler weather. It was pretty, I'd say, chilly from a guy from Southeast Texas. It was chilly Friday morning whenever we launched, and I feel like the bite was a lot better. And then progressively Saturday and Sunday, it kind of uh, slowed down a little bit, whether it was the weather or something else. So day one, I mean, my patterns were pretty much identical. I did the same exact thing I did pre-fishing, and the fish were there, and I took advantage of it. I didn't try to save any spots. I didn't know what was going to happen the next day. I didn't know if I was going to be back there the next day. So I took full advantage of it on day one. Day two, the patterns were a little different. I had to I tried to run that same routine when I went out deep. The fish just weren't there yet. They weren't there. They weren't biting. So I went back shallow, worked some more grass, worked some more bank areas, and then went out deep around 10 o'clock, and the fish were there. I was able to, had about an hour or two window, maybe three, out deep where they were biting good before kind of shut down that day.
Were there any specific colors that were working more than others?
Uh, I like I've kind of always, I'm a watermelon red guy. I'm a black
Mm.
and red guy. That's if the water is clear enough for them to see watermelon red, that's what I throw. If it's dark, a lot of overcast conditions, so I like the darker colors like black. Whenever it's overcast, and the water had a good stain to it. It was the kind of watercolor I'm used to fishing, where it's got some visibility, but it's got a heavy stain to it, to where I like those red flake colors on those.
Yeah, I can't go wrong with that one. It's watermelon red flakes, green pumpkin watermelon flakes
Yeah.
too. You can't go wrong with it. That's a classic. What any particular brand of soft plastic that worked best or that you felt more comfortable on day
Zoom.
one and day two? Zoom, yeah.
Yeah, Zoom. I'm a Zoom guy. I like all Zoom baits. I throw a Zoom crawl, Zoom trick worm, and I did throw curly tail worm. Some got some bites on that. I pretty much just rotated. If they didn't bite the crawl, I threw a worm. If they didn't bite the worm, I threw a crawl. I caught some fish early in the morning throwing a chatterbait. I like throwing a chatterbait. I tried to throw topwater, I think, in pre-fishing and maybe the first day of the tournament, but I didn't get any bites, which according to the rest of the tournament, that's what I think most everybody was throwing for a good majority of the tournament was topwater, which I was shocked because I wrote it off. Day two, I didn't even bring a single topwater lure out there. I took a lot of stuff out of my kayak because we had some heavy wind coming in, and I didn't, other than maybe a frog or two I had laying around in my kayak, I didn't have any topwater. And come to find out, a lot of those guys, that's what they were killing on out there, which I mean, and they put up some big fish with it on pre-fishing and day one, and then day two the bite was just a lot tougher, and it was it's more of a grind to get those fish to bite.
What was the total for both days that you end up? Was it 182? No, it
I,
wasn't more.
it was 192 for me for both days. I put
192.
up
Okay.
99 and a half day one, and I think 92 and a half day two, and
That,
I think I led day one, and then I was in second place behind Rolando on day two as far as those individual day scores.
well, yeah, I noticed on the first day 99, and I'm like, man, it's showing out. Welch is showing out. Give props to Chris Morales and Jacob and Joseph for picking that lake because it was showing out. And then day two, I see you got off to a slow start, I guess, or at least some of the other guys got up to a quick start. I saw Guillermo Gonzalez take the lead. I think he took the lead at 182. I think
Yeah.
that's what he ended up with. Going into day two, how comfortable did you felt that you were gonna have this on the bag, or were you nervous? You know, what
I,
was
I
your thought process on day two when you started off?
I don't think I ever up until they announced who won second place. I don't think I ever felt comfortable. I mean, it's I was real I was real happy with my day one, but I mean against a group of guys like that, I mean all that was maybe about 4 inches of cushion. I know there was Jeremiah Smith. I think he was behind me with like a quarter inch, and then I think the Howells, Rolando. I mean there was 8 of them I think that were in that mid 90s range where I mean, I just had a few inches of a lead, and against a bunch of guys like that, it's not much. So I was happy, but day two, I was really nervous because about probably 11 or 12, I finally I broke off a big fish, wrapped me around the stump, and then I caught a 21 right after that. And then after I caught that 21, my bite kind of just pittered out, and even all morning it was real slow. But so I was pretty nervous. I mean, I knew I had a good score. I had a good score that was going to put me in the hopefully the top. But uh, you never know. I mean, it had a good day out there, and it could have been anybody's game.
Yeah, definitely. When you got guys like that, like we've already mentioned a few times, you know, big names, you know, you lead, you'll never have a comfortable lead going into that. You just hope for the
No,
best, right?
yeah,
Now, going into day two, did you ever look at the leaderboard and kind of like try to keep tabs on what everybody else is doing and what you have in place, or do you just try to ignore and just continue with your game plan?
I kind of watch it. I mean, day one, I didn't post any of my fish till I had a solid limit, and then I finally posted my fish around noon, and then 'cause that was I was on in an area that had good fish, but it was a very almost like kind of a slow pace. I mean, I think day one especially, I didn't have but maybe 7 or 8. I say only. I mean, it was 7 or 8 scoreable fish with a bunch of little like 10 to 12 inch just dinks mixed in. But I knew where I was at deep. the fish were there. I just had to spend the time to get them to bite. So it was kind of a very slow progress. Same thing day two. I mean, it was maybe a scoreable fish every 30 minutes to an hour, maybe an hour or so went by before I caught a good scoreable fish, and I had a few areas that I would kind of go back to that the fish were kind of refilling in, and so I would fish those areas, go hit a few other little spots, let it rest for a second, then come back.
That's an interesting point that you brought up. You got your spot, then you let it rest and came back. Was that premeditated where you're gonna say, I'm gonna fish this spot. Once I see that it's cooled off, I'm gonna move to another spot and then come back to this spot?
It's really just it's kind of just trusting your gut in the moment, and I mean that doesn't always pay off. I mean I had just the tournament before this was the Southeast Texas Classic Championship, and
Mhm.
I did a lot of moving around that I shouldn't have in that tournament. I covered a lot of water that really cost me a lot of time, and I left a lot of areas that had good fish trying to find other fish, and so kind of coming into this one, I kind of was more honed in on really picking apart a little area, not trying to overthink a lot of stuff. And but once I found those spots, I knew fish were refilling there, and I just trusted my gut and just I didn't try to get in a rush. I picked apart a good chunk of the lake, but real methodical and making sure I covered as much good fishable area as I could. And Lake Welsh is a smaller lake, so I think the entire time there was usually people around me, and that's always a scary feeling because you know that somebody else may have just seen you catch a fish or two in one little spot. So if I leave that for too long, how long is it going to take before somebody sneaks over there? I had a boat that caught a fish, and of course it's Saturday, and I'm trying to keep my little spot in. Oh, nice fish! It's like, man, really making it tough on me out here. And that's the thing too. I mean, when you got boats around you, you don't want to you don't want to leave a spot and have them
Yeah.
come fish it, but at the same time, you can't get burned down in one spot too long. So you just got to trust your gut. I feel like I did that pretty well. I think Sunday I should have done a few things different, but in the end, it worked out, and was able to hold it up for the first place.
Yeah, that's one thing about tournaments. Hindsight is always, how they say, 2020. But that's always an interesting subject. And I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. And when we're talking about managing your spots, especially when we're talking about a 2-day tournament, there's different thought process, there's different techniques. And I'm not going to say that one specific way is always going to work at one
Right.
lake, on a 3 day tournament. That may, your thought process may work on this tournament on this particular lake at this particular time in the year. It may not necessarily work for another lake at another time of the year in another 2 or 3 day tournament. So
Right.
it really comes down to trusting your gut in your surroundings. Because like you said, there's that time where you're like, do I stay in this spot so nobody else fishes it? Do I risk not going to move to and trying to find more fish and then giving up the spot that I already had? And again, that is such a chess game when it comes to kayak fishing. That's one of the things that I love, especially about a 2-3 day tournament. There's a lot of moving parts that you have to consider, and it really does become a chess game. What spots are you going to use? In what spots are you going to let it rest? What spots are you just going to stay there, even if you're not casting, just so nobody else gets on that spot?
Yeah.
I've talked to guys where they're like, I got a good limit on the first day. I'm not gonna blow up my spot. I'm not gonna give it. I'm just gonna stay there
Yeah.
and not cast, just so nobody fishes on that spot. And there's a lot of stuff that goes kind of like a game within a game that I find so exciting about this sport. And again,
Yeah,
talking about more than 1 day tournament. It's
right.
just awesome to, there's so many layers to it, and the your progression as far as success on the water, it just goes from one layer to another. First you're struggling. When you start, you're struggling to not skunk. To catch one fish, and then it's more of like, okay, now I'm not getting skunk all that often. Now I can't remember the last time I got skunk. Now I'm actually catching a 5 limit. More constantly versus once every 5 days, and then it's just there's knowledge on top of knowledge. It's just gonna make you a better angler. You never stop
Yeah,
learning to fish in general, especially kayak fishing.
yeah. It's. I mean, I think it all boils down to time on the water. I mean, that's. I mean, hands down the best. I mean, the only way to get better, and I mean that's kind of what I did when I started out. Just fishing a bunch of the local uh, little club tournaments and fishing because I mean you learn from some of these good anglers and that's how you get your experience. And I think I said a lot of what helped me. I think this tournament was the struggles I just had on. Like when we had the throwdown, I did absolutely terrible. And then the Southeast Texas, I still did good, but I could have done a lot of things better. And so I think those things in the back of my mind really helped me focus in on this tournament. And like you said earlier, it's you're never hindsight's always 2020. I mean, even me winning, I still had a lot of things where I'm like, man, I wish I would have done that better. I wish I would have done that differently. But that's the only way you improve, and that's my goal every time I go out on the water or fish a tournament, especially. It's to just try to be better than last time and keep improving.
Definitely, it's and you can't let your guard down. There's not a point where you say, okay, I've reached the pinnacle. I'm,
Yeah,
I'm, I, I can't get any better. You always can get better, and
yeah,
there's always somebody nipping at your heels. And if you kind of like rest on your laurels, then there you go. There's somebody else is going to be taking over
yeah,
that kind of like that spot of winning Angler of the Year, winning tournament classics. It's never, it never gets dull. It never gets stale, because there's that group of names that keep coming up all the time, with Jody Queen, Russ Snyder, Drew
right,
Gregory. But then there's names that start coming up, Ewan Miner, Guillermo Gonzalez, which has now kind of like taken over
yeah,
kayak fishing in the last month with everything that he's doing. And he took part of this tournament. He took the lead midday through day two, and I was like, here we go. This guy's gonna have 3 wins in a row in the last 3 tournaments, and it almost did. He ended up fifth. You came out, and pulled the win at the end.
yeah.
And again, congratulations. Was there ever a time where you're like, you look at the leaderboard, you see Guillermo Gonzalez, he's taking the lead. He's at 182. Did you ever get down on yourself, or did that motivate you to say, hey, you know what? Luca's at number one. Let me see if I can catch up to him. What was the mindset? Did you ever notice when he took the lead, and how did that make you feel if you did notice it?
I think I'd whenever I would post a fish, I'd kind of glance at the standings just to see what was happening, and especially in this tournament, I mean, I think the biggest kind of just kick whenever you're out there is when you're struggling just from the very get go, and you look up and see somebody's posted, like you said, 90 inches, 100 inches, and I think, I mean, if you would have asked me a few months ago, yeah, that would have just shut me down. I would have started panicking, but I've built up a lot of confidence in what I'm doing, and in that tournament, especially with the day I had before, I was confident that if I kept my head on straight and kept doing what I knew was going to work out there, if I hadn't caught him yet, I had the opportunity to catch him eventually. And so I it's one of those I don't look at it all the time, just kind of depends, but it can get in your head, but I tried not to let it. And I worked on being able to just kind of I know what I can do, and sticking to my guns, and just seeing what I can do that day. Because if somebody's always going to find them in a tournament, and that's what I push myself to do is if somebody else can find them, then I, I can, and I got to go find them.
Speaking of big wins, you had third place at the Hobie B.O.S. in Sam Rayburn. What did that mean for you? I know you didn't win it, but I mean third place at another stack field at the conditions that nobody, I mean even local Texans were like that. That was a historic flood that Sam Rayburn was
Yeah.
going through. How did talk to me a little bit about that tournament? How did it feel for you getting that third place, and what worked for you on that tournament?
It was a huge confidence boost to me, and I mean it was amazing. Like I said, of course you'd always like to be first, but I was tickled to death to be third, and I didn't even know if I was going to fish that tournament. I've always wanted to get into some of the bigger national trails like Hobie, Pass. I just never have taken that dive, and Sam Rayburn's probably as close as they're ever going to get to me. And so it kind of, the lake being flooded the way it was actually kind of a push for me to go out there. I haven't fished Rayburn a whole lot before. I've maybe been out there a handful of times a year or two before that event. And so I know when the lake's high like that, things are flooded, it kind of levels the playing field for everybody. Any honey hole spot somebody may have had before is now 10, 15 foot deeper than it was. So I kind of went
Mm.
out there with I'm just going to go out there, fish as hard as I can, pick apart what I can. And that's what I did. I found I was in probably, I don't know, 15 to all the way up to the bank foot. I mean, where I was fishing was typically a forest. And so I'm in pine tree tops and tree tops and things like that. And I think one of my favorite fishing techniques is just flipping and pitching a little crawl bait on a flipping hook. I was using 50-pound braid. The water was real stained up there, so I was throwing I don't remember if it was watermelon red or what, but Rayburn's known for that red color, so I was throwing that in the trees, and I mean having to pull myself between trees and things like that. And once I knew that they were biting that, I threw a bunch of things the first day. Once I knew I could get bit on that, I just I didn't stop. I knew that if I could, the longer I kept my line in the water, and the harder I fished, the more chances I have of catching those fish. They were spread out everywhere. Uh, I didn't find, at least I found a few areas where they were grouped up, but I just knew the harder I fished, the better chance I had. And so I didn't have any like insane days, but I had two real good consistent days, and it was good enough to put me in that third place. So I was very happy.
I mean, you did great, and again, third place at that
Yeah,
tournament is, something that is nothing to sneeze about. Something that
yeah,
you definitely should be proud of, and I can see how that became a confidence booster because that was early in the year, and now when you look at that and you fishing the TKC, even though there's great names, it's like, yeah, you're not completely unfamiliar with
yeah,
fishing big name tournaments, which really does give you a little bit of high pressure. You never want to embarrass yourself. Even if that's kind of overrated, that term, because really, I
yeah,
mean, everybody struggles every now.
yeah.
At some point and somehow, everybody's gonna skunk on a
Oh yeah,
tournament. Excuse me. I don't care how good you are. You have your good days and your bad days.
yeah,
Everybody has them. Um, But when you're in a national event where you know that it's going to have a lot more coverage, it's going to be talked about in the KBN, it's going to be talked about in Paddle and Fin, it's going to be
yeah,
talked about in the group chats on Facebook. Even if you don't get that right now where we are in the sports, we don't get that TV audience. It's still something that a lot of people are going to be there, and when it's not necessarily one of those things where you don't want people to notice you skunk because really it's more about your name comes up, that you did great.
Yeah.
If your name doesn't come up, basically, you did nothing that warrants conversation about it. So you
Right.
want your name to come up because you want to do good, and you want that, gratification of other people, not just locally, but nationally, kind of
Yeah.
recognizing what you're doing.
Yeah.
But there's people out there that are also looking to get sponsors, and that's also a little bit more pressure situation, because now national
Yeah.
events is something that's going to help you out, other than the whole social media account. When you're looking at a local tournament, with your buddies, with your friends, it's more of a family ambience, So when you get
Yeah.
skunked, everybody there has skunked at some point or another, And for the most
Oh,
part, there's that camaraderie that that'll pick you up. He says, "Hey, don't worry about it, Caleb. You'll get them next time.
yeah.
Let's hope for this time." So really, a national tournament, it does bring a lot more attention, and even though people are not going to remember if you did wrong because your name's not going to be mentioned, they will remember you did great.
Yeah.
So you definitely want that your name to come up in those conversations. It's just that's what we fish for. You ever met a fisherman that doesn't like to brag about what they caught? I mean, that's what we are. It's so
Yeah.
hard
I mean,
to catch 5 fish. And so, when we do get them, we want to brag about it. We kind of wanted that recognition. That's
oh yeah.
narcissist that may sound.
Yeah, no, and that's what that I mean, that's what got me into to doing these tournaments. I mean, I never to me the winning the money is kind of more of just a bonus that helps
Yeah,
pay for all the money I've been dumping into this. But it's all about winning. It's the competition. It's the competition, and and then it said doing these national events is my next step. It's my next goal. It's something I'm going to try to work on and follow around some more in next season. So, like I said, hopefully a good first event doesn't lead to a bunch of disappointment in the future, but having that definitely gets me motivated to make that jump and try to follow around a few of those. Maybe even travel a little bit farther some of those national events to try to get my name out there and to try to become a better fisherman and win some more tournaments. So,
no, definitely, man, and you definitely shown that you got the talent to compete with anybody out there, no matter how big or daunting the tournament can be. Which ones you already got lined up? I know. I don't think Bass Nation Kayak Series has come up with the schedules yet. Not a
no,
huge surprise there. I haven't looked at KBF. I know Hobie B.O.S came up with the first 5 tournaments.
yeah,
There's a couple that are going to be coming close to Texas. Broken Bow, I think it's in there, and then you got Toledo Bend. Um, that's probably the 2 closest ones. Which ones are you so far out of
I think right
the
now,
schedules that come out?
I'm gonna definitely shoot to go to Broken Bow and Toledo. That's the plan right now. I guess maybe depending on how those go, I may try to drive a little bit farther to some of the other ones, and depending on timing with work and things like that. Southeast Texas is the local trail around here. That's I'll be prioritizing a lot of their tournaments, but definitely wanting to venture out to some of the national ones. They actually, I think, just announced today that they're going to move their February tournament to be on the same weekend as, well, the same location as
Yeah, I saw that.
they're they're going to do a dual Toledo Bend tournament. So I'll get to kind of do both of those together, which is going to make it even that much more big. So I'm hoping I can have a good shot at that one. But I'll for sure do the closer ones, and we'll just kind of and I hadn't looked too much into bass and to KBF, but I may kind of pick and choose some of those as they come closer. But the goal now to me kind of is I mean, with winning or getting third place for the Rayburn event qualified me for the Tournament of Champions. That's I think like 2 weeks away on Eufaula, Alabama, and so
Yeah.
that's kind of course we'll have to see how that goes in a few weeks, but it's given me something that I want to try to shoot for again next week, and whether that's the only way you can get in is by being in a certain placement with AOI for Hobie or getting in the top 3. So
Oh, but
I'm going to try
yeah,
to.
so you qualified, right?
I qualified. Yep.
Yeah,
Two.
congratulations, man.
I think 2 weeks. I've already got all that week scheduled off for vacation to go up there and pre-fish and fish that. So I'm looking forward to that, and that's going to be a goal for next year is to try to get up there again for that.
That's awesome, man. I forgot about that. Yeah, you did qualify.
Yeah.
Man, there's a lot of Texans, man. Texans have been blowing blowing up the competition this year. You got Bryan, Howell going to the T.O.C, Matt Scott,
Guillermo,
Guillermo, of course. Now
Bryan,
anybody else from Texas going there?
Bryan, I'm probably going to butcher his last name. I think it's Bryan Scanterbury or something like that.
Oh yeah, Bryan Scarberry. That's true.
Scarberry. I'm sorry. Yeah. He won first place for that Hobie event in Rayburn. So he'll be going. I think there's one other that I heard of that I'm just kind of drawing blank on his name right now. But I think there may have been one other. But yeah, Texas. I mean, Texas has always had some. I mean, just great anglers, especially in the state.
Yeah.
There's a very competitive group and some, very good anglers across the state. And I think not all of them follow around the national stuff, but this year there'll be a good showing for Texas out there. And if more of them fished it, I think it could get bigger.
No, definitely, man, and something to be proud of. I always say Texas. It's kind of like when you look at just bass fishing recreationally, it's heaven. It's a mecca of, and I know that's gonna sound a little like ostentatious to say because I'm from Texas, but it really is. I mean, when you look at the quality of fish that you have in Texas, combined with the culture, the bass fishing culture that we have in Texas, it really does make it prime area for bass fishing. Add to that, from that standpoint, it's like a blessing living in Texas. From the standpoint of competing, it's kind of like a curse because you really do have some of the best anglers right now that you have to compete on a daily basis on small tournaments, and that's only going to make you better, I guess. But yeah, it is. You really need to be on your A game to kind of stand out from the rest of the names that are here. I mean, and again, we talk about Jacob Andrews, Rolando Nandin, who won Angler of the Year for the TKC again on a stag field. I mean, what can you say about Rolando? I know he doesn't fish a lot of the national events, but man, oh man, is he a great tournament angler locally? He is, man. He is. And so there's a lot of great anglers out there, man, and you really need to be on your A game on every weekend. You're not gonna have a day off. Even on small tournaments, I fished the Slay Nation in Lake Fork, and Mark Pendergraft from Bryan, Howell was there, and we're talking about 30 anglers. Wasn't a big tournament, but some of the anglers, big names, and it's tough, But again, it's one of those things where if you really want to get better at bass fishing, especially kayak bass fishing, surrounding yourself, with this great anglers is only going to up your game. You have no choice, but if you have the right mindset to kind of up your game and learn from them and, and get those competitive juices flowing every time you see those names out there, you want to win against these guys, that's where you make a name for yourself.
No, and that's why and that's why I kept doing the tournaments. It's one of those that's the best and really only opportunity to learn from people, and I kind of learned too that every tournament that's won, there's the usually the top three. There's just who put the pieces together that day, and half the people are fishing completely different. I mean, you figure out your strengths and you figure out what works for you, and you can do that to put the pieces together that day. You can win some tournaments, but it's one of those. That's my goal, is to just keep on getting better, because there's a bunch of guys where you always see them at the top. I mean, they may not win first every time, but they're consistently at the top each event that they compete in, and there's a lot of great anglers out here.
There definitely is. Well, Caleb, I've had you for almost an hour now, and I know you're a family man, and I appreciate you taking time on a weekday to talk about the great win. Again, congratulations. Good luck on the Hobie B.O.S. Or the
Thank you.
T.O.C. in Lake
Yes, sir.
Eufaula, man. Like you guys out there, sure put Texas on the board if it's not already there. And
Yeah.
so good luck to you out there, man. Hope you get on them and catch a nice check and see what happens. Maybe
Hey,
this
I
we'll have you here talking about your big win at the T.O.C.
man, that'd be awesome. But we'll see how it shapes out. I sure hope so, though.
Well, Caleb, I want to give you a minute to thank anybody you want to thank. I don't know if you have your sponsors. I noticed your Pride um,
Yep.
Fishing Rods hat. Maybe you're affiliated with them. And so I'll give you a couple of minutes to thank who you want to thank, sponsors, family members, whoever you want to thank.
Yeah, I'll start out by thanking my family. Anytime I fish a tournament, they watch my dog for me, and they're my biggest supporter. So I gotta thank them for doing that. Southeast Texas Kayak Bass League. That's my group I
Alphabet
fish. They're
Crew.
always yeah, they're always super supportive. Bunch of text messages from them throughout the weekend, just encouragement and things like that. So I always appreciate that. Pride Rods. I started using them a while back. They picked me up. Billy Kistler makes an amazing rod. I use that. That's all I use, and it's done me good. Um, some of my others, I use a Volta lithium batteries. Some guys from the Southeast Texas group make them here, and they work great for me. And then Stank Stick. I think I'm working with them on getting something. Uh, I like using those. They got a little stank stick that's put on the base and gives that attractance into it. I use that on all my crawls and shad scent and things like that. But that's about it. I don't have a whole lot of sponsors, but anybody that looking to sponsor somebody, I'm just let me know.
Get him now before he goes big.
Hey, I'll take what I can get.
Oh. Well, man, congratulations. I see Chris Morales just came out with the schedule for next year. Some big, some really nice lakes over there. Fayetteville, Rayburn, Conroe, Choke, Fairfield, Houston, I don't know which one's that one. And Athens and Palestine. It's going to be the Classic Championship for 2 days. Those are very nice lakes too. Athens and
I think
Palestine.
that may have been last year's.
Last year's?
I think that was last year's. I think this year it's going to be. I think he's doing Fayette. I don't remember the order, but I think there's a Sabine River, Choke. He's doing the mix up with on Toledo Bend. It'll be a Hobie Southeast Texas mix event, and then Conroe. I feel like there's one more I'm missing, but then the championship this for 2022 is going to be in on Lake Fork. So
Oh,
yeah, I
really?
think he's kind of spreading out to some of the different lakes to try to help pull some people, and with a classic on Fork, it could be a good year. So I think it'll pull quite a few numbers, and he runs a good trail, and I look
Yeah.
forward to. I'm going to prioritize that more because I only got to fish a few events this last year or this season, I guess 2021. So my goal is to win back my my classic belt and to put my hat in the ring for AOYs is what I'm shooting for next year.
Yeah, man. That's Southeast Texas Kayak Bass League, the Alphabet Crew. First of all, great tournament director Chris Morales does
Yeah.
an amazing job. We can't thank him enough for what he's doing. And I think looking at the schedule, you might be right. I might have been quoted last year's tournament. The post they just did today. But yeah, Chris Morales again. Huge shout out to him with what he's doing. Blessed to have him on the as a tournament director for both TKC and Southeast Texas Kayak Bass League. I don't know if does he direct any other tournament. That's the only two he directs, right?
I believe that's the only two he does,
That's
and I think he's doing TKC with Andrew Jacobson. And
yeah, Andrew and
I think
Joseph Anderson.
this last year there was Joseph. Yeah, I think
so
that's
Chris,
the only two he does.
So Chris, if you're listening again, congratulations on an amazing season, both in the TKC and the again Southeast Texas Kayak Bass League. If we only have one gripe against Chris, he could probably shorten the name of that tournament trail. But
Yeah.
other than that, man, congratulations to Chris. Great job. And again, fortunate to have him as a tournament director here in Texas. So Caleb, again, thank you so much. Again, congratulations on your big win. We look forward to see what happens on the T.O.C. And again, thank you for having time to join us today on the water. On the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And like you said, hopefully I can win some more tourneys, and you'll need to talk to me again. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll definitely see you on the water. If God willing, I'll be able to be at Toledo and Broken Bow, and then we'll see what the rest of the schedule is gonna be. And then once Bass Nation releases their schedule, hopefully they'll have a couple of trails either in Texas or near Texas we can drive and make it there as well. So for those out there listening, thank you for joining us. If you made it this far, go check out my sponsor, Douglas Outdoors. Go to douglasoutdoors.com. Check out their full lineup of rods. Again, thanks for everyone. Have a great day. If you're going to be on the water, stay safe. Winter is coming. Make sure you layer up and, make sure you stay safe. Wear your PFDs. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Peace.